Hello, I am Aryan Jakhad and today I shall be talking about the oculosympathetic pathway and Horner syndrome. So I would be starting by explaining what this diagram says. Mind you, this is not an anatomically correct diagram. I have just drawn this in order to simplify this topic. So this right here is the central nervous system consisting of cerebrum, cerebellum, midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, spinal cord, hypothalamus and pituitary gland. This is the anterior cranial fossa, this is the middle cranial fossa, this is the posterior cranial fossa of the skull. This is the cavernous sinus situated in the middle cranial fossa. This is the orbit containing the eyeball and the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. And this is the carotid arterial system. So basically this lecture is about the sympathetic supply to the head and neck region and its clinical manifestations. Those clinical manifestations that are produced due to interruption of the sympathetic supply to the head and neck are lumped together as Horner syndrome. So I shall be starting with the very basics, that is with the sympathetic supply to the head and neck. So this right here is the CNS with the hypothalamus here, which is considered as the highest center for controlling the sympathetic outflow. These axons that are going down, are taking the sympathetic stimulation. These axons pass through the lateral part of CNS on either side. It is important to note here that the cranial nerves which arise from the midbrain, pons and medulla do not have any sympathetic outflow, but the structures in the head and neck do need the sympathetic outflow. Therefore, the fibers from the T1 ascend upwards to supply the sympathetic structures of the head and neck. This part of the spinal cord, this part, from where the fibers are coming out is called the ciliospinal center of Budge, which is nothing but the intermediolateral horn of the spinal cord. These fibers then pass through the inferior cervical ganglion and middle cervical ganglion, but do not terminate here and eventually reach the superior cervical ganglion and terminate or form the synapse. Therefore, these fibers are called the preganglionic sympathetic fibers as they are located before the cervical ganglion. Preganglionic sympathetic fibers. These postganglionic sympathetic fibers go along with the arterial system, which is mainly the carotid arterial system here. Some fibers go along with the internal carotid artery and some fibers along the external carotid artery. It is important to note here that the fibers are intimately related to the adventitia of the internal carotid artery. The sympathetic stimulation in the orbit is required mainly for two structures, that is the levator palpebrae superioris muscle and the iris. The levator palpebrae superioris muscle consists of two parts, the voluntary part and an involuntary part. The involuntary part is called the muscle of Muller. The voluntary part is supplied by the oculomotor nerve that arises from the midbrain, and the fibers jump from the internal carotid artery to join the oculomotor nerve to supply the involuntary part of the levator palpebrae superioris muscle, that is the muscle of Muller. The main action of this muscle is to elevate the eyelid. Therefore, if the sympathetic fibers are interrupted but the oculomotor nerve is intact, this would lead to slight drooping of the upper eyelid, which is usually less than 2 mm and is called ptosis. On the other hand, if the sympathetic fibers are intact but the oculomotor nerve is interrupted, this would lead to severe ptosis, as the main support to the upper eyelid is the oculomotor nerve. Now coming to the iris has two muscles, the circular muscle and the radial muscle. The radial muscle is supplied by the sympathetic fibers and the circular muscle is supplied by the parasympathetic fibers. The action of the radial muscle, which is quite intuitive, is the dilatation of the pupil, and that of circular muscle is constriction of the pupil. Therefore, if the sympathetic fibers are interrupted, this would lead to loss of the action of radial muscles, which would eventually lead to miosis, that is constriction of the pupil. Now let's talk about how the sympathetic fibers reach the dilated pupillae. So here's the trigeminal ganglion. It has three divisions: the ophthalmic division, the maxillary division and the mandibular division. The ophthalmic division then passes along the lateral wall of the cavernous sinus and then enters the orbit. In the orbit, it divides into three parts: the frontal part, the lacrimal part and the nasociliary part. The nasociliary part is mainly responsible for supplying the cornea. On its way from the internal carotid artery, the sympathetic fibers jump and join with the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal and then supply the dilated pupillae muscle in this fashion. Now let's talk about the sympathetic supply to the face. the sympathetic fibers go along the external carotid artery, this artery, and its branches for facial sweating. Therefore, these fibers are called pseudomotor fibers, SUDO, pseudomotor fibers. These are also vasomotor fibers as they supply the vessels and their walls. So now let's come to Horner syndrome, which is nothing but the clinical correlates of the oculosympathetic pathway that we have just discussed. So Horner syndrome. Horner syndrome is characterized by the following features, that is ptosis, meiosis, hypohidrosis or anhidrosis, flushing of face and heterochromia. Now let's come to the individual points. First things first, ptosis. Ptosis is caused due to the loss in the activity of the muscle of Muller, this muscle, which is the involuntary component of the levator palpebrae superioris. Meiosis, which is the constriction of pupil, that is caused due to the loss of the sympathetic supply to the dilator pupillae, this muscle, dilator pupillae, which would lead to hyperactivation of the parasympathetic fibers and ultimately lead to the constriction of the pupil. Hypohidrosis or anhidrosis and flushing of face is caused due to the involvement of fibers around the external carotid artery. Now let's come to heterochromia. By now you should be knowing that the melanin or color production in iris is under sympathetic control. Therefore, in case of Horner syndrome, for a long time the melanin production would get altered, which would lead to a condition called heterochromia, which is actually the uneven coloration of the iris. These three features, ptosis, meiosis and hypohidrosis or anhidrosis, are called the triads, triads of Horner syndrome. So now let's come to the causes of Horner syndrome. The causes may be central or peripheral. Central means the involvement of first order neurons from the hypothalamus and the preganglionic sympathetic fibers. Peripheral means the involvement of postganglionic sympathetic fibers. Firstly, central causes. Central causes may be due to pituitary tumor here, or lateral medullary syndrome, which is nothing but the infarction of the lateral part of medulla. Arnold-Chiari syndrome, which is actually the herniation of the cerebellar peduncles through the foramen magnum, which compresses the sympathetic fibers, first order sympathetic fibers from the hypothalamus. And lastly, the Pancoast tumor. The Pancoast tumor is nothing but the tumor of the apex of lung. This is a very alarming situation, which is characterized by pain in the scapular region and arm region, blood in sputum, along with the sudden onset of ptosis. Now let's come to peripheral causes. Peripheral causes may be due to dissection of internal carotid artery, or cavernous sinus thrombosis, or Klumpke's paralysis. Cavernous sinus thrombosis, I would like to mention here, is the thrombosis inside of the blood inside the cavernous sinus. The thrombosis could lead to the damage to the sympathetic fibers around the internal carotid artery. Klumpke's paralysis is caused due to the involvement of T1, and it is characterized by the claw hand deformity. Now there's a very famous saying about the dissection of internal carotid artery, that if someone develops sudden onset of Horner syndrome with pain in neck and face, then it is dissection of internal carotid artery until proven otherwise. Now there's another feature in Horner syndrome, that is anophthalmos. That is sunken eye. Actually the eye is not sunken. The eye appears to be sunken because of the narrowing of the palpebral fissure. So that's all for today. I hope this lecture was helpful. Thank you.